Hello and welcome to Quiz Class. I'm your host, Ellen, and today we have 100 questions on the 1960s. Let's take a look at our Quiz Class awards. You can let us know how you rank in the comments at the end, along with the answer to the bonus question, as always. Our categories for today: creative arts, innovations and inventions, best movies, historical facts, and this or that. So let's begin with creative arts. Which artist popularized the use of everyday objects like soup cans in their artwork during the 60s? Roy Lichtenstein, Jasper Johns, or Andy Warhol? Andy Warhol. What was the name of the colorful art movement characterized by optical illusions? Abstract expressionism, op art, or pop art? Op art. Which 60s sculptor is known for creating large-scale abstract metalworks? David Smith, Henry Moore, or Donald Judd? David Smith. What art style of the 60s focused on bright, saturated colors and comic book imagery? Cubism, minimalism, or pop art? Pop art. Which British artist became famous for his paintings of swimming pools in the 60s? Richard Hamilton, David Hockney, or Peter Blake? David Hockney. What famous series by Roy Lichtenstein features comic strip-inspired paintings? Campbell's Soup, The Last Supper, or Wham? Wham. What style of art, prominent in the 60s, used industrial materials and geometric shapes? Abstract expressionism, minimalism, or surrealism? Minimalism. Which 60s movement featured immersive environments and multimedia installations? Happenings, Fluxus, or land art? Happenings. Who created the installation The Store, showcasing painted sculptures of consumer goods? Andy Warhol, Ed Rushka, or Claes Oldenburg? Claes Oldenburg. What famous 60s performance artist used her body as a medium for art? Marina Abramović, Carolee Schneemann, or Yoko Ono? Yoko Ono. Which movement in the 60s emphasized anti-commercialism and rejected traditional art? Dada, Fluxus, or abstract art? Fluxus. What art form did Christo and Jean-Claude pioneer with their large-scale environmental works? Pop art, conceptual art, or land art? Land art. Which 60s art technique, popularized in pop art, used small dots to create shading and textures? Ben-Bay dots, mosaic, or pointillism? Band-Aid dots. Which color field painter became famous for large luminous paintings in the 60s? Barnett Newman, Helen Frankenthaler, or Mark Rothko? Mark Rothko. What iconic 60s art event combined music, poetry, and performance in untraditional spaces? Art fairs, biennales, or happenings? Happenings. What technique did Andy Warhol use to mass produce his art? Etching, silkscreen painting, printing, or woodcut? Silkscreen printing. What kind of visual art often featured bold, repetitive shapes and lines? That would be op art. Which movement in the 60s sought to break down the boundaries between high and low art? Pop art, abstract expressionism, or minimalism? Pop art. What geometric shape was frequently used in the 1960s minimalist sculptures? Sphere, cube, or cone? Cube. Which 60s artist painted the American flag in an abstract way? Robert Rauschenberg, Jackson Pollock, or Jasper Johns? Jasper Johns. Let's move on to the category of inventions. What invention of the 60s is now found in almost every household, helping us warm food in seconds? The toaster oven, electric grill, or microwave oven? The microwave oven. Which medical innovation in the 60s dramatically reduced deaths during childbirth? Ultrasound, blood transfusion, or epidural? Ultrasound. What life-saving machine, first portable in the 60s, is now common in emergency rooms and ambulances? Dialysis machine, pacemaker, or the defibrillator? Defibrillator. What discovery in the 60s improved weather forecasting by enabling global satellite coverage? Barometric analysis, geostationary satellites, or Doppler radar? Geostationary satellites. Which life-changing medical device developed in the 1960s is used by millions of diabetics today? Blood pressure cuff, glucose monitor, or the insulin pump? The insulin pump. What revolutionary kitchen appliance invented in the 60s helped preserve food for longer periods? Vacuum sealer, freezer bags, or food processor? The vacuum sealer. What groundbreaking 1969 event watched by millions on TV made many dream of space travel? The first spacewalk, Mars rover mission, or the moon landing? The moon landing. What popular toy for entertainment and communication introduced in the 1960s changed the way we watch TV? Antenna booster, cable box, or remote control? The remote control. Which synthetic fabric introduced in the 60s made wrinkle-free clothes a reality? Nylon, polyester, or acrylic? Polyester. Which iconic vehicle, first sold in 1964, became a symbol of innovation and affordability? The Chevy Impala, the VW Beetle, or the Ford Mustang? The Ford Mustang. What major medical breakthrough of the 60s led to the first successful organ transplants? Immunosuppressants, genetic testing, or antibiotics? Immunosuppressants. Which innovation in education and entertainment developed in the 60s is now a staple in schools? Slide rule, cassette player, or the overhead projector? The overhead projector. What 1960s kitchen innovation allowed families to enjoy ice cubes at the touch of a button? Water dispenser, ice maker, or the soda machine? Ice maker. What time-saving household tool developed in the 60s is now essential for keeping carpets clean? Carpet sweeper, vacuum cleaner, or floor polisher? The vacuum cleaner. What 1960s invention for medical imaging made it possible to diagnose internal injuries without surgery? The MRI machine, ultrasound device, or the CT scanner? The CT scanner. Which 60s space innovation is now responsible for modern GPS systems? Apollo 11, ground radars, or navigation satellites? Navigation satellites. Which iconic toy, first marketed in the 1960s, used magnets to teach children about science and fun? Light-Brite, Etch-a-Sketch, or the Easy Bake Oven? Etch-a-Sketch. What 60s tech development allowed home movies to be recorded and played back more easily? The VHS recorder, the 8mm camera, or the film splicer? The 8mm camera. What handheld medical device introduced in the 60s revolutionized blood pressure monitoring? Pulse oximeter, the glucometer, or the sphygmomanometer? The sphygmomanometer. Which 60s invention allowed everyday consumers to enjoy frozen food with ease? Microwave, the food processor, or the frost-free freezer? The frost-free freezer. And let's move over to movies. Movies of the 60s. Which film starring Janet Leigh is considered one of Alfred Hitchcock's masterpieces? Rear Window, Psycho, or Apocalypse Now? Psycho. Which actor became an icon of Westerns after his role in the 1966 classic The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly? Lee Van Cleef, John Wayne, or Clint Eastwood? Clint Eastwood. Which musical, starring Julie Andrews, won 5 Academy Awards in 1965? The Sound of Music, My Fair Lady, or West Side Story? The Sound of Music. Mrs. Robinson, you're trying to seduce me, aren't you? Is an iconic line from which 1967 film? Cool Hand Luke, Midnight Cowboy, or The Graduate? The Graduate. Which actress won the Best Actress Oscar for her role in Breakfast at Tiffany's? Sophia Loren, Elizabeth Taylor, or Audrey Hepburn? Audrey Hepburn. Here's Looking at You, Kid is often misattributed to the 60s but was famously used in what film re-released in this decade? Dr. Zhivago, Casablanca, or The Apartment? Casablanca. We Rob Banks is a famous line from which 1967 crime drama starring Warren Beatty and Faye Dunaway? The Getaway, The Thomas Crown Affair, or Bonnie and Clyde? Bonnie and Clyde. What epic 1962 film starring Peter O'Toole told the story of T.E. Lawrence? Spartacus, Dr. Zhivago, or Lawrence of Arabia? Lawrence of Arabia. What we've got here is failure to communicate is a line from which 1967 Paul Newman film? The Hustler, Cool Hand Luke, or HUD? Cool Hand Luke. We are at question 50. Which Stanley Kubrick film, released in 1968, is a science fiction classic? 2001: A Space Odyssey, Dr. Strangelove, or Planet of the Apes? 2001: A Space Odyssey. What 1964 musical film featured Rex Harrison as a linguistics professor? Camelot, Oliver, or My Fair Lady? My Fair Lady. Who played the role of Cleopatra in the lavish 1963 epic film Cleopatra? Joan Crawford, Sophia Loren, or Elizabeth Taylor? Elizabeth Taylor. What groundbreaking 1966 film starred Sidney Poitier as a teacher in a struggling London school? To Sir with Love, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, or Lilies of the Field? To Sir with Love. What 1969 film starring Robert Redford and Paul Newman features the line, "Who are those guys?" The Wild Bunch, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, or The Sing? Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. Which 1961 film features Sidney Poitier as a doctor navigating racial tension while treating a wounded suspect? Pressure Point, A Raisin in the Sun, or Paris Blues? Paris Blues. In which 1968 avant-garde film by Andy Warhol does Eddie Sedgwick play one of her most famous roles? Poor Little Rich Girl, Ciao Manhattan, or Chelsea Girls? Chelsea Girls. Which 1964 Japanese film by Akira Kurosawa follows the story of a kidnapping gone wrong? The Bad Sleep Well, High and Low, or Red Beard? High and Low. Which 1966 film by Michelangelo Antonioni is known for its surreal exploration of photography and reality? Red Desert, La Ventura, or Blow Up? blow up. What 1963 horror film directed by Robert Wise is often considered one of the scariest movies of its time? Black Sunday, Carnival of Souls, or The Haunting? The Haunting. Which 1965 spy thriller starring Michael Caine introduced the character Harry Palmer? The Ipcress File, Funeral in Berlin, or The Billion-Dollar Brain? The Ipcress File. And let's move over to historical facts for question 61. Which African leader became the first Prime Minister of independent Congo in 1960? Lumumba, Nkrumah, or Kenyatta? Patrice Lumumba. What year did the Berlin Wall begin construction dividing East and West Berlin? 1962, 1960, or 1961? 1961. Who was the first woman to become Prime Minister of India in 1966? Golda Meir, Margaret Thatcher, or Indira Gandhi? Indira Gandhi. Which U.S. president initiated the Alliance for Progress, aiming to improve relations with Latin America? Lyndon B. Johnson, Richard Nixon, or John F. Kennedy? John F. Kennedy. What year did the Cuban Missile Crisis bring the world to the brink of nuclear war? 1961, 1963, or 1962? 1962. Which country gained independence from France in 1962 after a bloody war? Algeria, Tunisia, or Morocco? Algeria. Who was the iconic leader of the Civil Rights March on Washington in 1963, delivering the I Have a Dream speech? Malcolm X, Rosa Parks, or Martin Luther King Jr.? Of course, Martin Luther King Jr. What 1967 war between Israel and its neighbors lasted only 6 days? The Yom Kippur War, the Six-Day War, or the Suez Crisis? The Six-Day War. Which city hosted the signing of the treaty that established the EFTA in 1960? Stockholm, Geneva, or Rome? Stockholm. Which leader's cultural revolution began in China in 1966? Zhou Enlai, Mao Zedong, or Deng Xiaoping? Mao Zedong. What country became the first in sub-Saharan Africa to gain independence in the 60s? Ghana, Kenya, or Nigeria? Ghana. What event in 1969 is often called the birth of the Internet? Apollo 11, UNIVAC, or ARPANET? ARPANET. Who became France's president in 1969 after Charles de Gaulle stepped down? François Mitterrand, Jacques Chirac, or Georges Pompidou? Georges Pompidou. What year was the first non-stop Concorde flight conducted? 1969, 1960, or 1968? 1969. Which country initiated the Green Revolution in the 60s to combat food scarcity? Mexico, India, or Pakistan? India. What 1968 offensive during the Vietnam War marked the turning point in U.S. public opinion? Gulf of Tonkin, Operation Rolling Thunder, or the Tet Offensive? The Tet Offensive. Who was elected the first Secretary General of the Organization of African Unity in 1963? Kwame Nkrumah, Julius Nyerere, or Diallo Telly? Diallo Telly. What year did Canada officially adopt its maple leaf flag? 1964, 1965, or 1966? 1965. Which U.S. astronaut became the first to orbit the Earth in 1962? Alan Shepard, Neil Armstrong, or John Glenn? John Glenn. Which European country experienced the Prague Spring Reform movement in 1968? Poland, Hungary, or Czechoslovakia? Czechoslovakia. This or that. For question 81, what 60s TV show featured a horse that could talk, creating comedic scenarios? Mr. Ed or My Friend Flicka? Mr. Ed. What popular 60s lunchbox featured imagery from the TV show The Jetsons? The Jetsons box or Batman box? The Jetsons box. Which kitchen gadget, marketed as the Slice-O-Matic, became a TV night sensation in the 60s? Vegematic or Matic Bullet? The Vegematic. What iconic brand of jeans released its first bell-bottom style in the 60s, targeting the counterculture movement? Wrangler or Levi's? Levi's. What household cleaner introduced in 1965 was advertised with the slogan, "Strong enough to clean a man's hands"? Comet or Lava Soap? Lava Soap. What 1960s novelty record player allowed kids to play music using small vinyl discs coated with grooves? Victrola Mini or the Close and Play? Close and Play. What soft drink released in 1966 was marketed with the phrase, "The diet drink you don't have to be on a diet to drink"? Sprite or Tab? Tab. What space-themed toy launched in the 1960s featured a spinning disc that soared through the air? Frisbee or a yo-yo? The Frisbee. And we are moving on to question 89. Which 1960s toothpaste was the first to include fluoride as a cavity fighter? Crest or Colgate? Crest. Which 1960s TV ad campaign featured a chorus singing, "You'll wonder where the yellow went when you brush your teeth"? Colgate or Pepsodent? Pepsodent. What 60s fad involved swallowing live creatures like fish for amusement and social status? Goldfish swallowing or sword swallowing? Goldfish swallowing. Which 60s appliance became iconic for its avocado green and harvest gold colors? Stove or refrigerator? The refrigerator. What toy made of soft rubber was first introduced as a bath companion for children in the 60s? The rubber duck or the bath buddy? The rubber duck. What iconic 60s TV character worked as a witch trying to live a normal suburban life? Samantha Stevens or Jeannie? Samantha Stevens. What type of dress made famous by Twiggy became a must-have fashion statement in the 60s? The mini dress or the maxi dress? The mini dress. Which home decor item filled with oil and wax was a symbol of the psychedelic 1960s? The disco ball or the lava lamp? The lava lamp. Which musical toy introduced in the 60s allowed children to create music by pressing rainbow-colored buttons? Light Bright or Melodica? Melodica. We are on question 98. What brand of sunglasses, favored by counterculture groups in the 60s, became a style statement? Ray-Ban or Oakley? Ray-Ban. Which brand of cigarette was marketed with the rugged Marlboro Man campaign? Marlboro or Camel? Marlboro. Question 100. What 60s magazine aimed at teenagers was known for its bright covers and pop music features? 17 or Tiger Beat? Tiger Beat. And our bonus question, which planet is known as the red planet? Let us know the answer in the comments, along with how you did with our Quiz Class Einstein Awards. And here they are. We hope you enjoyed playing this quiz. If you did, please hit that like button, and we will see you in our next one. Bye-bye.